What up, Salvador Briggman here, and on today's YouTube video, we are getting into what equity crowdfunding is, and more importantly, breaking it down and demystifying this for you. So if you've been wondering about this topic of equity crowdfunding, or maybe you hear that idea of regulation crowdfunding, that's what we're talking about in today's video. More importantly, how to use crowdfunding in order to have an injection of cash into a startup, into a new company. That's what we are covering today. So let's get right into it, and I do hope that you've been enjoying my other videos on this channel. My name is Salvador Briggman. I've been in the crowdfunding industry since 2012, and for me, equity crowdfunding is one of the most exciting times to be alive. So first of all, let's kind of get into equity crowdfunding and really what that means. So first of all, I'm going to go with a little bit of a definition, okay? So if we want to think about the definition behind equity crowdfunding, all that we really mean is that we're having a large group of people be able to contribute to one seed or Series A funding round in order to get a company funded. So when we think crowdfunding, right, that's one part. Crowdfunding is we have multiple people that are putting in money in order to fund a specific campaign. When we think equity, what they're getting in return is equity or shares in that specific campaign. So we can kind of think of it as having a bunch of people rally together, and maybe they believe in this startup, or they really like the idea, or they really believe it's going to change the world with impact investing, and they're actually going to put money into this business, which is going to fund it in a meaningful way. Now, there are many different stages of a business which might use equity crowdfunding in order to have an injection of cash. It could be a business that's an idea stage or a concept stage. You could already have a prototype or a software product of some kind. You could already be getting some traction and users, or it could be an established business that already has grown to the $1 million plus mark in terms of revenue and is using crowdfunding as a way to involve their users and their customers. But that's the key point with equity crowdfunding, is that all of these people are actually investing in a business, and what they're getting in return are shares or ownership. But it goes a little bit more complicated than that. So we have a little bit of the definition here, right? What about these stages? So in terms of the stages, we have people who are just in the idea stage. So they have a concept or an idea. We have other people as well who have a prototype of some kind. So they have an application of some kind, a new software tool. It could be a physical product. I'm going to say prototype. Right, so we have other people that are in the prototype stage. That's a really horrible handwriting. We have other people that have already gotten users or traction, and then we have growing startups. We're just gonna say growing, and kind of going down the line there. But that says idea, prototype, people that are getting users already, and then people that are growing that already have revenue, or that they're really getting to those bigger numbers. So when we think of equity crowdfunding, typically we're thinking, if we want to be more specific, the pre-seed, we're gonna say pre-seed / seed stage is where it's most commonly used. Now, that doesn't mean you can't do necessarily like a Series A and maybe have venture capitalists that are involved in your funding round, and also you open up a small pool that allows everyday, ordinary retail people to participate in that funding round. That's gonna be called a community round, okay? Community round. Typically, it's going to be pre-seed, seed, or community round. Now, these are designed to get a startup or a business to the next stage where it can raise more money, or it can grow to the point of profitability. But if we're thinking about the stages in which people use equity crowdfunding, we're typically thinking these stages in terms of the business. Well, that's great, Sal, but what about like the types of companies that are doing this, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about the types. So there are many different types of companies that have been using equity crowdfunding in order to bring cash in the door. And some of them you might not even expect when it comes to this. So the first one, I think, is the easiest low-hanging fruit, would be software. There's a lot of software products and apps and platforms and marketplaces that are using equity crowdfunding in order to raise their pre-seed, seed, or in some cases, a community round using equity crowdfunding. We also think of other, which would be physical products. So if you go and look on the major platforms, which we'll talk about in a bit, you can see some of the physical products that are out there, be these physical design products, inventions, electronics, you name it, when it comes to being able to use equity crowdfunding. We also see beverage companies. beverage and food. These are a great growing segment when it comes to equity crowdfunding. And this is really if you're producing something new and you want to be able to raise capital for this. I have many different episodes and podcasts on my podcast, Crowdfunding Demystified, that showcase beverage companies, physical products, and software companies successfully raising money when it comes to equity crowdfunding. What are some other potential ones? Well, other ones would be healthcare. We see a lot with this. We've also been seeing more and more when it comes to film projects that are raising money for indie film campaigns. And as well, we think of that when it comes to like web series, or I'm going to say entertainment. We've been seeing more people raise money this way. So if you have a new film which you're producing, or a new game, or you're doing more of like a broader publishing company, and you're looking to be able to raise capital for that and give away a little bit of ownership, you can also do that in terms of the types. The secret here is that there's actually so many types that are currently using money, equity crowdfunding to raise money. And another I'm going to throw on here is real estate. We're even seeing real estate raise funding using equity crowdfunding. Now, more specifically, what I would say when it comes to this is that it's not just about the types of companies, it's really about the goal, the target, or the exit strategy. So this is really what, to me, delineates the companies from each other. So we're going to say exit strategy, we're going to say exit S. Most of these companies are going to have one or two exit strategies, maybe three. So the first one is going to be that someone is trying to grow a big company, a new app, a new software tool, a new physical product, and their goal is to sell that to another company in the future. And that's how their investors up here will actually realize a return. So the first one is going to be a sale. They intend to have an acquirer or someone actually purchase the company in the future, and that's why they're raising capital, how they're going to get a return for these investors. Another one would be an IPO. Now that could be just like a mini IPO in some way, or at least allowing the people that have invested to be able to sell their shares with a liquidation event in the future. Or it could be something where they're really trying to go IPO in a much bigger way and to sell this on the public market, right, when it comes to their shares. And that way they're going to have the investors cash out. Lastly, I would say, and this is a lot less common, would be dividends, or other companies that are raising money maybe are not using, and we'll talk about the types, they're not using more of a traditional type. Maybe they're giving away debt or a repayment structure, or in some way a revenue share agreement, which they're offering through their equity crowdfunding campaign, which is actually the next point that I want to get into. Moving right along here, I know I'm kind of going at rapid fire speed, but I'm really enjoying this, and you can tell I'm really passionate about this as well. So let's talk a little bit about, right, the contract type. So I think this is important in explaining equity crowdfunding, because whenever someone gives you money, there's always a reason behind that. In this case, we think about that in terms of the contract. So with equity crowdfunding, all of these people are investing money in your startup, in your business. What do they want in return? Well, if you know, leave a comment down below. One of the contract types here would be what's called a convertible note. So I'm going to say convertible note. Another would be what's called a crowd safe, and I'll get into what that is really quickly. There's also what's called a priced round. And then we'll say alternative. Alternative would be things like if you're giving away debt and like a repayment structure for that debt. It could be as well, alternative could be like a revenue share agreement of some kind, or really just unique contracts that don't fit into the main categories. The most common would be crowd safe and convertible note, followed up by a priced round. So what does this mean? This means that if someone decides that they're going to invest in your equity crowdfunding campaign, and we'll talk more about the structure behind that, they, under a crowd safe model, are not yet getting shares in your company. All they're saying is that, hey, we are going to agree that we're going to invest in this company, and at a future point in time, you're going to determine the valuation of that company. Now, I know it sounds a little bit confusing, but I'll talk about that more in just a second, so bear with me. That's really what a convertible note as well is kind of saying to a degree. The difference here is that with a convertible note, those people are actually going to be repaid a certain amount over the lifetime of that note, and at a future point in time, that convertible note is going to convert into equity. And this is typically when there's some kind of a major price round, like a VC comes in. So the big difference between convertible note, safe, and priced round is that with a priced round, you're deciding the valuation of the company right then and there. It's the most expensive option as well to do. Most people are doing safe or convertible notes. So in terms of this is really the contract that's happening. But I think that's a little bit detailed. What I want to talk more about is like the structure behind this. So let's talk a little bit about the structure of an equity crowdfunding campaign, because this is really where the meat and potatoes are kind of meeting here. So the first thing is that every equity crowdfunding campaign, and we're just going to say components here, okay, the components of an equity crowdfunding campaign. Number one is that there is a funding goal. There's some kind of a goal which you're trying to get to, and in able to hit that, you're going to be able to then go out there and either market your startup more, or you can have enough cash to be able to develop the product more, or whatever your goal is. So the first one is going to be what we call a funding goal. Okay, there's a funding goal, and that allows you to then go out there and make strides in the marketplace. The next thing is that there's what's called a funding duration. This is how long you're running the actual campaign for your startup, how long you're running this equity crowdfunding campaign for. There's also what we call perks, also known as rewards, okay? This is what investors get when they invest in your campaign. So yes, they might get an agreement for future equity with CrowdSafe, or they might invest under a convertible note, but they also might have access to perks and rewards. So for example, let's say you developed a new software application for something like a meditation app, right? And you want to do a startup raise, an equity crowdfunding raise. You might say that for anyone who invests $5,000, you get to attend my annual meditation retreat in Bali, right? Or in some really cool destination where it's a guided meditation and it's this great group kind of a vibe. So you can have perks and rewards depending on the amount that someone invests. Want to take all the stress out of fulfilling your Kickstarter rewards? Fulfillrite is the turnkey solution that puts product delivery on autopilot. The Top Campaigns uses trusted high-tech provider to store, package, and ship their products. Focus on growing your business. Leave shipping to the experts. Don't wait. Get a custom quote from Fulfillrite today. Link in the description. What are some of the other components of an equity crowdfunding campaign? Well, you're also going to have multimedia. So that's going to be a pitch video, which goes in depth into the startup, the opportunity, the USP or the unique selling point, the target market you're going after, how much that's growing, really a lot of the common elements that go into an investor pitch deck. You're going to have a video, plus you're going to have a campaign page, which kind of goes more detailed into that actual pitch, and also talks about your traction and your team and really where you've gotten to when it comes to this concept or this product or this prototype. So you're gonna have a video and a page. And most importantly, you're gonna have details. So these details are kind of like the financial mumbo jumbo or information behind your business that's going to be publicly available when you do an equity crowdfunding campaign. So when it comes to doing this, and again, this is a lot of information here, if you are running an equity crowdfunding campaign where people can invest money and you're interested in doing this in one of these major stages, and maybe you fall into one of these types or what you see on another platform, and you want to maybe sell your company in the future or do an IPO, you're willing to do one of these contracts we talk about, basically, you're going to need to decide on how much funding do we need in the door. This is also intimately tied to your valuation as well. We also then think about the funding duration. How long am I going to be running this equity crowdfunding campaign? Is it going to be for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? How long are you going to do this? The perks and rewards can be at $500. Someone gets access to your app for a year, or for $5,000, they get lifetime access to your new software tool, right? You then also need a compelling video and a page which really sells this opportunity to investors, and also the details behind this, the financial details that go into your equity crowdfunding campaign. Now let's get even more nitty gritty here, because the goal here is to kind of, remove the fog and to demystify this. And this is what I love to do on this channel. And if you like the way that I kind of deliver this in a bite-sized manner and go through this in a step-by-step fashion, number one, go and grab my book, Equity Crowdfunding Explained. It's available on Amazon. There's also a version on Audible. You can listen to me passionately read this book as I go, whether you're going out there, you're going for a walk, or you're going on a commute, or you have a trip that's coming up. You can listen to this in the car, right? And drive your family crazy when it comes to that. So go and grab a copy on Amazon or on Audible. And also I have a free course if you want to get bite-sized information every single lesson, every couple of days or weeks. You can go and check out this free course at crowdcrux.com/equity course. Enter your name and email, and you'll start getting some lessons about equity crowdfunding. More importantly, how do you get fund it? How do you actually blow past your goal and make sure that this goes the way that you want? So we talked about the components. Let's talk a little bit about rules. It's so boring. Rules is not my favorite one. I love to break rules, but when it comes to marketing and when it comes to equity crowdfunding, we must follow the rules because again, this is you selling securities online. And previously, it was not able for you to do this. This is not legal. So first of all, this is under a securities exemption, which was made popular by the Jobs Act, which is one of the things I studied back in 2012 when it was first passed and then later enacted in 2015 and eventually kind of started to make its rounds and people started to launch campaigns. And then more recently, they raised the limit from, I think it was around 1,070,000 up to 5 million in the amount that you can raise. What this is known as is regulation crowdfunding. I'm going to say CF. Reg CF, regulation crowdfunding. There are many ways in which you can sell securities, whether that's a Reg D or a Reg A, which is usually for a much bigger raise. This is what's known as regulation crowdfunding, okay? That's the first thing to be aware of. The second is that under regulation crowdfunding, again, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an accountant, you can go and talk with a high-priced lawyer if you want to, right? But when it comes to this is more of my opinion on a YouTube video, my thoughts, regulation crowdfunding, what you are allowed to do is what's called general solicitation. Now, what is general solicitation? And in addition, you're allowed to do general solicitation among what are called tombstone style ads or posts or whatever you want to call it. General solicitation is where if I do a regulation crowdfunding campaign, I can market this campaign on social media. I can send emails about it. I can do paid ads. I can do PR. I can do anything in order to actually broadcast this offering. That is not true of other regulations when you are raising money. Sometimes you can't talk about it publicly unless the person is what's known as an accredited investor. So this is a key word, and I'm going to kind of put this here. We're getting a little bit messy here, but we're going to try to keep this organized a little bit. There's two types of people. One of them, we're going to say ACCR, accredited investors and non-accredited investors. What is an accredited investor? An accredited investor is basically an angel. An accredited investor is someone who has a high net worth, they have a really good net worth, and they can take a loss. They also make a high income, right? They're a higher earner income. They could be a doctor, they could be a startup founder, a business owner, a lawyer. It's someone who can basically afford a financial loss. An accredited investor can invest in different types of offerings that you maybe can't if you're not an accredited investor. Then we have non-accredited investors. And until regulation crowdfunding was enacted, non-accredited investors couldn't invest in startups. It was illegal. But now they can because of regulation crowdfunding. So that's why you can use general solicitation and do tombstone style ads. All that means is like you can put basic information on the ads. You can't talk about the terms of the raise, right? In an ads, and you can market your campaign to non-accredited investors who is everybody. We're going to say everyone. So the cool thing about this in understanding equity crowdfunding and how it works is that, again, you can market this to anyone, not just accredited investors. And those people can receive that marketing and communications through ads, social media, PR, an email that they, happens into their email inbox. You can do that using regulation crowdfunding. At this point in the video, you should have a much clearer understanding of what equity crowdfunding is. Understanding that it's really gathering people together, be able to invest in a startup company, in a new business, how they actually expect to earn a return as well, which is based on the contract type. Usually they're looking for either a sale of the company in the future or an IPO or a dividend. And more importantly, the stages of the company that can go through this equity crowdfunding process in order to raise capital from the crowd. In many ways, it's supplanting other ways that people are raising capital from angel investors, etc. The types of companies as well that see great returns and that are able to successfully navigate the terrain of equity crowdfunding. So first of all, you're getting a ton of information here, and as well, the components that go into the campaign, the funding goal, the duration, the perks and rewards, the video, the page, details, rules, the fact that you can market this to anyone through general solicitation to non-accredited investors, usually investing between 850 to 1,200 a pop, and also the fact that you can have tombstone style advertisements if you want to be able to market this on things like Meta, LinkedIn, Google Ads, you name it. So at this point in the video, if you feel like I've done my job in explaining this to you, first of all, give me a thumbs up on this video and come subscribe for more content like this. But second of all, if you'd really like to have some guidance and hand-holding, specifically when it comes to the marketing of this campaign, how do you get people to show up and get them to invest and back your project when you go live with your equity crowdfunding campaign? How do you make it so you have a massive explosion going live, have people singing your praises, getting media mentions even around the globe about this new campaign which you've launched, and you want to make sure you do it right. You dot your I's, you cross your T's, and you get the marketing side of this equation correct going into the campaign. Go down below and book an individual one-on-one coaching call with me at the link crowdcrux.com/coaching. You can book your call there, fill out a little bit of information, tell me more about you, your project, your startup. We can talk about not only your pitch deck, we can talk about your video, the campaign page, or if you need help with that, we can also discuss that. I've also had many students who will book a call with me who are not sure if equity crowdfunding is right for them. Remember, I cover it all when it comes to crowdfunding, and there are other forms of crowdfunding as well, and as well unique platforms that we haven't yet talked about when it comes to this video. So go down below and book an individual coaching call with me. But in addition, I'm gonna include in the description a link to the top equity crowdfunding platforms, which you can begin to check out if you're interested in launching a campaign. Hope you enjoyed this video. Give me a subscribe if you did like it. My name is Salvador Briggman, and I'll see you next time.